Well, hey everyone, welcome to our first legislative video update for the 94th General Assembly. I'm Gennie Diaz with 4AR People.
And I'm Hannah Bruner.
And we're so glad that you're here. We're going to keep you up to speed on what lawmakers are doing down at the Capitol. So let's dive right in. So this week was mostly organizational in nature. It was the very first week of session. So they had to get their ducks in a row in both the House and the Senate. Over in the House, Speaker Matthew Shepard was elected for a third term.
And over on the Senate, Bart Hester was elected for his first term as President Pro Tem.
And so some context we want to throw in for you over at the House, more than half of incoming Republicans, which included a lot of freshman Republicans, sent a letter to Speaker Shepard ahead of session asking him to bar any Democrats in the House from serving on committee leadership. And this includes things like the chair and the vice chair positions. So the House selects chair and vice chair positions on the first day, as directed by Speaker Shepard. And so we were watching to see what would happen. Would he cave to the demands of these incoming members, or would he ignore it and actually select Democrats to serve on committee leadership? And so he went with the latter, kind of barely skirting this demand by the extreme members in his caucus. And he selected two moderate Democrats for vice chair positions in the House.
So on Tuesday, after the ordeal in the House, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was officially sworn in as the next governor of Arkansas. And during her speech, she talked a lot about jail expansion, tax cuts, school choice, and she was pretty hypocritical about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I also want to point out that Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed several executive orders her first week in office, some of them really intending to stoke fear and anxiety among her base with some culture war related stuff. So she had an executive order that talked a lot about CRT and the importance of banning that in schools, and also banning the term Latinx from state documents. So clearly making a statement to her supporters that she's here to kind of ruffle those culture war feathers for those on the left. So in addition to it being really an organizational week for the House and the Senate, we have seen a lot of bills that were pre-filed prior to the session, and then bills that got filed during this week as well. One caught a lot of attention from the public, rightfully so, a bill called Senate Bill 43 by Senator Gary Stubblefield. It would label drag shows as adult performances, essentially classifying them as adult-only types of events. And LGBTQIA supporters rightfully were outraged by this bill and framed it as an anti-trans bill. Stubblefield, some context for you. The senator was behind a petition in Craighead County that defunded successfully their public library because Senator Stubblefield was upset with a pride display that this library had set up a previous year. So Senator Stubblefield has been one major player in trying to pass legislation targeting LGBTQ members of our community in Arkansas. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he continues down this line and files more legislation coming up during this session. Wouldn't surprise me if Gary did that.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if we see, a handful more of anti-trans bills, just like we did in 2021. Really upsetting, really disappointing to see that happen. And, it wastes a lot of taxpayer dollars. We go to court when these bills pass. In Sarah's speech on Inauguration Day, she talked about cutting excess spending. And I feel like this is a great way to cut excess spending, is to just not file really terrible bills.
Along those lines, Hannah, didn't you cover the Senate today on Thursday? And wasn't there a bill that would limit how many bills or a motion rather for how many bills senators could file in a day?
Yeah, so a new senator, he was previously in the House, Senator King. Today in the Senate, they were really just focusing on Senate rules and adjusting those to the new year. And he proposed a couple new rules, none of which were passed. And the first one was to limit the number of bills a senator could file to one per day, which a lot of issues there. And then the other half of that was it would limit the number of bills heard during session, like during the floor session, to 35. So one per senator. So we would only be hearing 35 bills a day, which means session would never end. And his reasoning, I kind of see he doesn't want people to file bills at the last minute to kind of like skirt something in that maybe other people won't approve of or would be willing to vote yes on. But I think an easy way to fix that is just to bring back the bill filing deadline that they nixed in 2018. And then he also, which this one I kind of agree with, he presented a rule that would divert legislators per diem to back taxes if they owed any back taxes, even if they had set up a payment plan. So even if you were like making your payments, you're paying your back taxes, you're not going to get any of that per diem because it would go directly to like paying your taxes. But that did not pass.
Huh. I kind of like that.
I know, it was like an interesting concept, and I didn't expect to like agree with anything that King said.
Yeah, on the heels of Senator Alan Clark getting into all the trouble he did for the per diem issue, I think that's kind of a creative way to address some of those accountability issues and misuse of taxpayer funds.
Yeah. And I mean, Mickey Gates, what was it in 2018 when he finally, he owed, I don't even know how many dollars in taxes and hadn't filed taxes in 15 years. And was still serving on the legislature. So
I wonder if we'll see more from Senator King that kind of addresses, spending and government transparency and accountability.
He seemed pretty passionate about it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Hannah, did you catch anything that happened in the Senate this week pertaining to education and maybe along the lines of school choice?
Yeah, so, again, this was organizational. We didn't hear any bills in Education Committee, but we did hear from the new Commissioner of Education, who spoke a lot about his support for school choice, which is a little disheartening to hear from someone who is now over education in our state. He was called out by Linda Chesterfield. She pointed out that there are so many schools or public schools in our state that are falling apart, whether that be internally or, the actual school building. There are issues that need to be addressed before we start diverting funds to private and charter schools. We need to make sure that our main system of education is kept up before giving public funds to private schools. So that's what we heard on the Senate side from the new commissioner. Again, it's going to be a long session, but we're here and we're going to keep y'all informed on everything. So
that's right. And if you haven't, if you're just watching this video because someone shared it, you can go to our website, forarpeople.org. And you can sign up there to stay up to date on what's going on in the legislature. We'll also keep you informed if there's any action items, ways that you can be involved in making your voice heard to take back ownership of this process, which belongs to you as Arkansans. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.